The great halls of Nexus Prime stretched out like a metal canyon. Ambassador Li Dongwu walked through the corridor with steady steps. His black diplomatic suit made him look small next to the towering alien structures around him. The walls hummed with strange energy that made his teeth ache. 50 years. That was how long humans had been part of the Galactic Council. 50 years of working together, sharing ideas, and building a better galaxy. Li Dongwu had been there for 20 of those years. He remembered when the Council first welcomed Earth with open arms. They had been amazed by human creativity and problem-solving skills. Now, everything felt different. The Council chambers opened before him like the mouth of some giant beast. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above. Hundreds of alien beings filled the curved seats that rose up in circles around the central speaking platform. Li Dongwu had stood on that platform many times before. Today felt like it might be the last. Park Min-ho stood beside him, his military uniform crisp and clean. The older man's face showed no emotion, but Li Dongwu could see the tension in his shoulders. Behind them, Kim So-young adjusted her tablet computer one more time. Her scientific equipment beeped softly as it recorded everything. "Remember," Park Min-ho whispered, "stay calm no matter what they say." Li Dongwu nodded. He had prepared for this moment for months. The signs had been there: fewer invitations to important meetings, delayed responses to Earth's proposals, whispered conversations that stopped when humans entered the room. The Vorthic Prime Speaker rose from his crystalline throne. His body looked like living diamond, refracting light into rainbow patterns across the chamber walls. When he spoke, his voice rang like church bells. "Ambassador Li Dongwu of Earth," the Prime Speaker said, "you stand before the Galactic Council to hear our decision." "I am honored to serve," Li Dongwu replied. Following the old protocols, the ethereal delegate floated near the ceiling, her gas-formed body shifting between blue and green colors. Her voice came from speakers built into the walls. "The Council has watched humanity for 50 standard years. We have seen your rapid advancement. We have observed your unpredictable nature." Li Dongwu felt his stomach tighten. "Here it comes." "Your species learns too quickly," said the Trilaxian representative, his 6 arms gesturing wildly. "You solve problems in ways that break established patterns. You ask questions that disturb the natural order." Kim So-young stepped forward slightly. "If I may speak, honored council members, human innovation has benefited all species. Our medical advances alone have saved millions of lives across the galaxy." "Silence," boomed the Vorthic Prime Speaker. "You are here to listen, not debate." The chamber fell quiet except for the low hum of the environmental systems. Li Dongwu could hear his own heartbeat. Around the great circle, hundreds of alien eyes stared down at the small human delegation. "The Council has reached a unanimous decision," the Prime Speaker continued. "Humanity must choose. You will submit to genetic modification to stabilize your aggressive tendencies and limit your technological growth rate. Our scientists will oversee this process to ensure galactic security." The words hit Li Dongwu like physical blows. Genetic modification. They wanted to change what made humans human. They wanted to make them slower, duller, easier to control. The alternative, the ethereal delegate added, her gas-formed body now a threatening red color, is immediate expulsion from council space. All human colonies, ships, and personnel must leave within 1 standard year. Any who remain will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. Park Min-ho's hand moved slightly toward his weapon before he caught himself. Kim So-young's tablet beeped frantically as her equipment picked up rising energy levels throughout the chamber. Weapons were being charged. The aliens were ready for trouble. Li Dongwu took a deep breath. In his mind, he could see Earth hanging in the black of space, blue and white and beautiful. He thought of the millions of humans who had built new lives among the stars. Children born on distant worlds who had never seen Earth's sun. Families who trusted him to protect their future. "May I have a moment to confer with my colleagues?" he asked. The Prime Speaker's crystalline face showed no expression, but his voice carried irritation. "You have 1 minute." Lee Dong-woo turned to Park Min-ho and Kim So-young. They formed a small circle, their backs to the watching aliens. "They're afraid," Kim So-young whispered. "The energy readings show massive defensive systems coming online. They expect us to fight." "We could," Park Min-ho said quietly. "Earth's fleet is strong. Our allies among the minor species would support us." "And start a galactic war," Lee Dong-woo replied. "Millions would die." "If we accept their terms," Kim So-young said, "humanity dies anyway, just slowly." Lee Dong-woo looked at his companions. These two had served with him for years. They had faced impossible situations before and found solutions. Now they were asking him to choose between two kinds of death for their species, but maybe there was a third option. "Time," called the prime speaker. Lee Dong-woo turned back to face the council. He walked to the center of the speaking platform. The lights focused on him, making him feel like an insect under a microscope, but he stood straight and spoke clearly. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he began. "For 50 years, humanity has served alongside you. We have shared our knowledge freely. We have fought beside you against common enemies. We have built a better galaxy together." Murmurs rose from the alien delegates. They had expected anger or pleading. Lee Dong-woo's calm tone surprised them. "You fear our unpredictability," he continued. "You worry about our rapid advancement. You want to change us into something safer, something more manageable." The Vorthek Prime Speaker leaned forward. "Your answer, Ambassador." Lee Dong-woo smiled, and somehow that smile was more unsettling than any threat could have been. "The Council has made its choice," he said. "Humanity will make theirs." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. Kim So-young's equipment began broadcasting on all frequencies. Every human ship, colony, and outpost in the galaxy would receive the message within hours. "By the authority granted to me by the United Earth Government and the Colonial Assembly," Lee Dong-woo announced, "I hereby formally withdraw humanity from the Galactic Council. All treaties, agreements, and obligations are terminated immediately." The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens shouted in dozens of languages. Warning alarms began to sound. The Prime Speaker's crystalline form blazed with angry light. "You choose?" "War, then?" the ethereal delegate demanded. "No," Lee Dong-woo replied, his voice somehow carrying over the noise. "We choose departure." He looked up at the hundreds of alien faces staring down at him. Some showed anger, some confusion, some fear. None showed understanding. "Within 72 standard hours," he said, "all human presence will be removed from Council space. We will take our unpredictability with us. We will take our rapid advancement. We will take our dangerous questions." Park Min-ho and Kim So-young moved to flank him as security forces began to converge on the platform. "And when you realize what you have lost," Lee Dong-woo said, backing toward the exit, "remember that this was your choice, not ours." The three humans walked out of the council chambers with measured steps. Behind them, the greatest gathering of alien civilizations in galactic history descended into shouting and chaos. None of them noticed the small smile on Kim So-young's face as she checked her tablet one final time. The real message had already been sent. And it contained much more than just orders to evacuate. The clock had started ticking, but not the way the council expected. Fleet Admiral Choi Jae-sung stood on the bridge of the flagship New Seoul, watching the screens that showed hundreds of human ships moving through space. Each dot of light represented thousands of lives, entire communities pulling up roots and leaving everything they had built behind. The order had come through exactly 71 hours ago. Every human in council space had received the same message: pack what you can carry and prepare for immediate departure. No exceptions, no delays. "Status report," Choi Jae-sung called out. Yang Haijin looked up from her station, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. As logistics coordinator for the entire evacuation, she had not slept in 3 days. Her eyes were red but focused. "Colony ships from the Kepler system just jumped out," she reported. "That makes 87% of all human populations. Now in transit." The remaining settlements are in the final stages of evacuation. On the main screen, another cluster of ships appeared as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Mining vessels, cargo haulers, passenger liners, and military escorts all flying together in a massive convoy. They came from every corner of Council space, carrying the dreams and hopes of 5 billion humans. Kang Ujin's voice crackled over the communication system from his position at Minerva Colony. Admiral, we're loading the last transports now. The agricultural domes have been stripped of everything useful. We should be ready to jump in 6 hours. Understood, Kang. Make it 5 hours if you can. Choi Jasung had been planning evacuations for 30 years, but nothing like this. Usually you evacuated from danger. This time they were evacuating into the unknown. Earth's government had been very clear: leave Council space completely. Find somewhere new. Build something better. But what worried him most were the orders that came after the public announcement. The secret protocols that only senior commanders knew about. Instructions that made no sense but came directly from Earth's highest levels. Admiral, called Lieutenant Commander Park from the communications station. We're receiving surrender. Requests from 3 more human settlements. They want to stay and submit to Council terms. Choi Jae-sung felt his jaw tighten. Response? Same as the others, sir? We tell them they're free to make that choice, but they do it without any support from Earth? They're on their own. It was harsh but necessary. The evacuation only worked if it was complete. If humans scattered across Council space in small groups, they would become hostages. The Council would use them as leverage against Earth for generations. Yang Haijin stood up and stretched, her back popping from hours hunched over computer screens. Sir, I need to ask about the restricted cargo again. Choi Jae-sung glanced around the bridge. The crew was busy with their duties, but ears were always listening. Not here, my ready room. 5 minutes. He walked to his private office, a small space behind the bridge filled with tactical displays and communication equipment. Yang Haijin followed, closing the door behind her. What exactly are we carrying? She asked. The weight calculations don't match the manifests. Some of these cargo containers are showing impossible readings. Choi Jae-sung activated the room's privacy shields. No one could listen in now, not even the ship's computer. Classified Earth. Technology, he said. Equipment that the Council must never see. What kind of equipment weighs negative mass? He stared at her. Yang Haijin was one of the best logistics officers in the fleet. If anyone would notice the strange readings, it would be her. You didn't see that, he said firmly. Sir, I need to know what we're carrying. If something goes wrong during transport, we all die and take the secrets with us. Those are my orders. Yang Haijin went pale. In 30 years of military service, she had never heard an admiral speak like that. Back on the bridge, new reports were coming in from across the evacuation zone. Human colonies were shutting down with clockwork precision. Before leaving, each settlement was following specific protocols that seemed designed to erase all trace of human presence. Admiral, called the sensor operator. Nova Britannia Colony. Just went dark, all power systems offline. But sir, there's something strange. Right before shutdown, we detected some kind of chain reaction in their industrial complexes. What kind of chain reaction? Unknown, sir. It lasted exactly 17 seconds, then everything went silent. Choi Jae-sung nodded. That matched the timeline in his secret orders. Every human installation was supposed to trigger its self-destruct sequence exactly 17 minutes after the last transport departed. Not to deny resources to the Council, but to hide something else entirely. On the tactical display he could see Council ships moving to investigate abandoned human settlements. They would find empty buildings and dead machinery, but nothing else. All human technology was programmed to dissolve itself into basic materials within hours of activation. Message coming in from Earth Command, announced the communications officer. Put it through to my personal channel. The voice of Admiral Kim from Earth's orbital headquarters filled his earpiece. Jae-sung, how are we doing? On schedule. Maybe a little ahead. The civilian population has been incredibly cooperative. Good. Any sign of Council interference? Troy Jae-sung checked his screens. Council ships were following the human convoys but keeping their distance. They're watching. U.S. leave, but no hostile actions. I think they're still in shock. That won't last long. Once they realize what they're losing, they'll try to stop the evacuation. Are the packages secure? The packages. Another code word for the mysterious cargo that wasn't supposed to exist. All packages are secure and responding normally to transport. Conditions. Excellent. Phase 2 begins as soon as you clear the galactic rim. You have your sealed orders? Troy Jae-sung touched the locked container on his desk. Inside was a data crystal that could only be opened once they reached a specific location in deep space. I have them. Remember, Admiral, what we're about to do will change everything. The Council thinks they're getting rid of a problem. They have no idea they just freed us to become something extraordinary. The transmission ended, leaving Troy Jae-sung alone with his thoughts. Through his office window, he could see the vast human fleet stretching out in all directions. Thousands of ships carrying millions of people into an uncertain future. Young. Hyjin's voice came over the intercom. Admiral, long-range sensors are picking up something unusual. There's a massive energy signature building at the edge of our convoy. He rushed back to the bridge. On the main screen, space itself seemed to be bending around one of the cargo vessels. The ship was surrounded by a sphere of twisted light that hurt to look at directly. What ship is that? He demanded. The Bizin merchant, sir. Heavy cargo hauler. According to the manifest, it's carrying mining equipment. Troy Jae-sung felt his blood run cold. The Bizin merchant was carrying one of the packages. Whatever was happening, it was starting early. All ships maintain minimum safe distance from Bizin merchant. Do not approach under any circumstances. The twisted light around the cargo ship began to pulse. With each pulse, space seemed to fold in on itself. Other ships in the convoy reported navigation equipment, going crazy as local gravity fields shifted in impossible ways. Then suddenly the effect stopped. The Bizin merchant looked normal again, floating peacefully among the other vessels. But something had changed. The ship's quantum signature was different now, showing readings that violated known physics. Sir, whispered the sensor operator, that ship is broadcasting a signal. Very faint, very low frequency. It's like ... like a countdown timer. What's it counting down to? Unknown, sir. But based on the pattern, it won't reach zero for about 64 years. Troy Jae-sung stared at the peaceful-looking cargo ship. Somewhere in its hold was technology that Earth's greatest scientists had worked on in secret for decades. Technology that the Council could never be allowed to see. Continue the evacuation, he ordered. And prepare for immediate jump to hyperspace once we clear Council sensor range. As the great human fleet moved toward the edge of known space, none of them realized they were carrying the tools to rewrite reality itself. The Council had given them the greatest gift possible, freedom to become what they were truly meant to be. The clock was ticking, but not toward destruction. It was counting down to rebirth. The first year after the humans left felt like a victory to the Galactic Council. The Vorthak Prime Speaker often mentioned how much quieter the galaxy had become. No more sudden proposals that turned entire industries upside down. No more humans asking uncomfortable questions about why things were done certain ways, but by the third year, problems began to appear. The Trilaxian Trade Federation discovered this first. Their cargo ships had always relied on human-designed navigation software to plot efficient routes through asteroid fields. Without humans to update the system, ships began taking longer paths that used more fuel and time. Federation Controller Zix9 complained to the Council. The humans always fixed these problems in days. Now it takes us months to find solutions. That do not work as well. The ethereal delegate floated above her crystalline podium, her gas-form body a worried orange color. Surely your own scientists can improve the software. We try. But human thinking was ... different. They saw patterns we cannot see. Similar reports came from across the galaxy. Mining operations that had run smoothly for decades suddenly hit problems when equipment failed. The humans had always known exactly how to fix complex machinery that broke down in unexpected ways. Now, alien engineers followed repair manuals. That often did not work. On the water world of Aquatica, the fish farms that fed billions of beings across 3-star systems began failing. The automated systems that controlled water temperature and food distribution had been designed by human engineers. When the delicate balance was disrupted by a solar storm, no one knew how to restore it. Thousands of sea creatures died before Aquatican scientists found a temporary solution. But it was crude and inefficient compared to what the humans had built. "They made it look so easy," said Chief Scientist Bubble Singer to her research team. "Humans would walk in, look at our problems for a few minutes, then suggest fixes that worked better than anything we had tried." The worst crisis came in the 5th year. An ancient automated defense system in the Rigel sector suddenly activated after sleeping for 1,000 years. The massive weapons platform had been built by a long-dead civilization, and no one understood how it worked. In the past, humans would have been called in immediately. They had a gift for understanding alien technology, even when its creators were extinct. Human engineers could look at incomprehensible machines and somehow figure out what they were supposed to do. But now there were no humans to call. The defense platform began attacking any ship that came within 10 light years. Trade routes that had existed for centuries became death traps overnight. 3 different species tried to shut down the ancient weapons, and 3 different fleets were destroyed. The Galactic Council held emergency session after emergency session. Military commanders presented plan after plan, but none worked. The ancient defense system seemed to learn from each attack and become stronger. "How did we solve these problems before humans joined the council?" demanded the Vorthic Prime Speaker, the oldest member of the council. A crystalline being whose name translated as Memory Keeper spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "We did not solve them. We worked around them. We accepted losses. We adapted to problems instead of fixing them. And humans changed that?" Humans never accepted that problems could not be solved. They attacked every challenge as if defeat was impossible. Their stubbornness was ... effective. By the 10th year, the galaxy had changed in ways no one expected. Without human mediation, old conflicts between species began growing worse. The Trilaxians and the Cetaceans had argued about mining rights for decades, but humans had always found compromise solutions that both sides could accept. Now the 2 species moved closer to war each year. Both sides remembered how humans had prevented conflict before, but neither could figure out how to do it themselves. Trade suffered as well. Human merchants had connected distant parts of the galaxy with supply chains that seemed to run like magic. They moved resources from where they were plentiful to where they were needed, always finding new markets and opportunities. Without humans, these trade networks began falling apart. Goods sat in warehouses on one world while other worlds desperately needed those same products. The economic systems that had brought prosperity to billions slowly ground to a halt. "We are becoming stupid," declared the ethereal delegate during one particularly frustrating council session. "Not individually, but as a galaxy. We have forgotten how to think creatively." She was right. Alien civilizations had grown comfortable letting humans solve the hard problems. When unexpected challenges arose, everyone looked around for a human to fix it. Finding none, they often just gave up and accepted failure. The most disturbing reports came from the Outer Rim, where human colonies had once thrived. Council survey teams sent to investigate the abandoned settlements found something troubling. All the buildings were still there, all the equipment remained in place. But every piece of human technology had stopped working. Computers, vehicles, manufacturing systems, everything had simply died at the same moment humans left the galaxy. Even more strange, the dead technology could not be repaired or restarted. It was as if every human-made device had been programmed to self-destruct in a very subtle way. The machines looked normal but would never function again. Dr. Crystalline thought. The Council's chief scientist published a report that worried everyone. Human technology was more advanced than we realized. These devices contain components that do not match any known physics. When they stopped working, they took secrets with them that we may never recover. The search for humanity began in the 15th year. Council fleets equipped with the most advanced sensors spread out across the galaxy, looking for any trace of where humans had gone. They found nothing. Long-range scanners detected no human ships, no human colonies, no human communications. It was as if 5 billion people had simply vanished from existence. The only evidence they had ever been there were the dead cities they left behind. How does an entire species disappear? The Prime Speaker asked his advisors. Perhaps they went beyond the galactic rim, suggested General Sharpedge. Our sensors cannot reach that far. Or perhaps they found a way to hide from our detection, added Dr. Crystalline Thought. Human science was advancing very rapidly before they left. They may have developed stealth technology we cannot imagine. The most frightening possibility came from the ancient memory keeper. Perhaps they found something out there, something that changed them. Something that made hiding from us seem like a good idea? By the 20th year, younger members of the council began to suggest that maybe the humans had been right to leave. The galaxy was stagnating without their constant innovation and problem-solving. Maybe genetic modification to make species safer was not such a good idea after all, but it was too late for regrets. Humanity was gone, and no amount of wishing would bring them back. Strange reports continued to filter in from the outer regions. Space-time distortions near former human colonies that came and went without explanation. Quantum signatures that did not match any known technology appearing briefly in deep space, then vanishing. Most disturbing of all was the signal that astronomers first detected in the 25th year. A faint radio transmission coming from outside the galaxy, far beyond the reach of any known civilization. The signal was clearly artificial, clearly intelligent, but completely incomprehensible. The signal grew stronger each year, as if whatever was broadcasting it was getting closer to the galaxy. Or perhaps getting more powerful. Dr. Crystalline Thought spent years trying to decode the transmission. The patterns were complex, mathematical, definitely the product of advanced intelligence. But they followed no known linguistic or mathematical principles. It is like a countdown, she finally announced to the council. The signal pulses in a sequence that decreases by 1 unit each galactic standard year. If the pattern continues, it will reach 0 in approximately 39 years. Countdown to what? Demanded the Prime Speaker. Unknown. But whatever sent this signal has been broadcasting for a very long time. The mathematics suggest it began exactly when humans left our galaxy. The implications hung in the air like a poison cloud. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of known space, something was counting down to an event that would happen in 4 decades, and somehow it was connected to humanity's disappearance. Dr. Crystalline Thought stared at the impossible readings on her screen for the 3rd time that morning. The quantum resonance detector was showing signatures that should not exist. According to every law of physics she knew, the patterns dancing across her display were completely impossible, but there they were. Computer, run diagnostic on all sensor equipment, she commanded. All systems functioning normally, replied the artificial intelligence. Quantum signatures confirmed. Source unknown. The signatures had first appeared 6 months ago near the abandoned human colony of New Beeson. At first, Dr. Crystalline thought her equipment was broken. The readings suggested someone was manipulating space-time itself in ways that required technology far beyond anything the Council possessed. More disturbing were the names buried in the quantum static. When she ran the signals through pattern recognition software, fragments of human language appeared. Names like Lim Tae-young and Moon Ji-yoon showed up repeatedly in the mathematical structures. It was as if the fabric of space itself was remembering specific humans. Dr. Crystalline Thought, called her assistant from across the laboratory. The gravitational anomaly reports are ready? She walked to the main display table where holographic images showed star maps from across the galaxy. Red dots marked locations where gravity had behaved strangely in the past few years. The pattern made her feel cold despite her crystalline body having no actual temperature. Every anomaly occurred near a former human settlement. Every single one. "Show me the timeline," she ordered. The display shifted to show the anomalies appearing in sequence. They had started small, just minor fluctuations that could be explained as normal stellar activity. But each year they grew stronger and more frequent. Computer, analyze the progression pattern. Numbers and graphs filled the air around her. The mathematical curve was elegant and terrifying. If the pattern continued, the anomalies would reach critical levels in exactly 34 years. 34 years. The same time when the mysterious countdown signal from outside the galaxy would reach 0. Dr. Crystalline Thought felt something she had never experienced before. Fear, real, deep fear that made her crystalline structure resonate with harmonic frequencies of terror. Her communication device chimed with an urgent message from the Vorthic Prime speaker. "Report to Council Chambers immediately. Bring all data on quantum anomalies." The council chambers felt different when she arrived. The usual calm dignity had been replaced by barely controlled panic. Representatives from dozens of species whispered frantically to each other. The ethereal delegate floated near the ceiling, her gas-formed body cycling through colors that indicated extreme stress. "Dr. Crystalline Thought," the prime speaker's voice rang across the chamber. "Present your findings." She activated her data projectors and filled the air above the speaking platform with holographic displays. Quantum signatures, gravitational anomalies, and timeline projections painted a picture that made several alien delegates gasp in shock. "The evidence suggests that reality itself is being modified in locations where humans once lived," she began. "The changes are subtle but growing, stronger each year." "What kind of modifications?" demanded General Sharpedge. "Unknown. The quantum signatures do not match any known technology. They appear to involve manipulation of fundamental forces at the subatomic level." The Trilaxian representative's 6 arms waved frantically. "You're saying humans left behind machines that change physics?" "No, these are not machines. The signatures suggest direct manipulation of space-time without any visible technology. As if someone learned to reprogram reality itself." Silence fell across the chamber. The implications were staggering. If humans had discovered how to alter the basic laws of physics, they possessed power that made the entire Galactic Council irrelevant. "There is more," Dr. Crystalline Thought continued. "Deep space observatories have detected evidence of stellar engineering in the void beyond our galaxy." New holographic images appeared, showing telescope data from the galactic rim. Stars that should not exist appeared briefly in empty space, then vanished. Massive structures spanning light years flickered in and out of existence like mirages. "The energy requirements for such projects would exceed the total power output of our entire civilization," she explained. "Whatever is building these things has access to forces we cannot comprehend." The ancient memory keeper spoke in his grinding voice. "How long have these observations been available?" "The first sightings occurred 28 years ago. They have become more frequent and more ambitious each year." 28 years, the memory keeper repeated. 4 years after humans departed, Dr. Crystalline Thought nodded. "The correlation is undeniable. These phenomena began shortly after humanity left our galaxy and are growing stronger as the countdown signal approaches 0. The ethereal delegate descended from the ceiling, her body now a deep purple color that indicated profound concern. "What happens when the countdown reaches 0? "Unknown. But based on the escalating pattern of quantum anomalies and stellar engineering projects, the event will likely be significant." "Significant how?" pressed the prime speaker. Dr. Crystalline Thought hesitated. What she was about to say would sound like madness, but the data was clear. "Based on the quantum signatures and their interaction with local spacetime, I believe humans are preparing to return. But they will not be the same species that left us 30 years ago." The chamber erupted in chaos. Alien voices rose in dozens of languages as representatives shouted questions and accusations. The Prime Speaker activated sonic dampeners to restore. "Order, explain," he commanded. The quantum signatures contain biological markers that match human DNA patterns. But they also show modifications that should be impossible. Genetic structures that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Neural patterns that span vast distances through quantum entanglement. She paused, knowing her next words would change everything. "I believe humans have learned to transcend the normal limitations of physical existence. They may be evolving into something beyond our understanding." The reports that followed over the next few months supported her theory. Survey teams investigating ancient ruins throughout the galaxy found evidence of recent activity. Structures built by extinct civilizations millions of years ago showed signs of repair and modification. The work was sophisticated beyond anything the Council could achieve. Entire planets had been restructured at the molecular level. Solar systems showed evidence of orbital mechanics that violated known physics. Most disturbing were the messages left behind. Hidden in quantum fluctuations and gravitational waves, human voices spoke in mathematical languages that hurt to hear. The names Dr. Crystalline Thought had detected in her first readings appeared everywhere: Lim Taehyung, Moon Ji-yoon, and dozens of others. "They are preparing something," she reported to an emergency council session. "Every modification, every quantum signature, every gravitational anomaly is part of a larger pattern. They are building toward some kind of culminating event." "What kind of event?" demanded the Prime Speaker. "Based on the energy scales involved, they appear to be preparing to remake our entire galaxy." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. If humans had gained the power to restructure reality itself, the Galactic Council was no longer the dominant force in the galaxy. They were insects compared to what humanity had become. "How much time do we have?" asked General Sharp-Edge Doctor. Crystalline Thought checked her calculations one more time. "The countdown signal indicates 34 years until the culminating event, but the preparatory changes are accelerating. We may see the first major manifestations much sooner." "Recommendations?" She looked around the chamber at the representatives of dozens of civilizations. All of them were staring at her, hoping she had answers that would save them from an uncertain future. "We should attempt to make contact," she said finally. "Whatever humans have become, they were once our allies. Perhaps they still remember that friendship, and if they do not?" asked the ethereal delegate. Dr. Crystalline Thought did not answer. Some questions were too frightening to voice aloud. But the data was clear, humanity was coming back, and when they arrived, the galaxy would never be the same again. The clock was ticking toward an event that would reshape everything they knew about existence itself. The emergency alarm echoed through the council chambers like the scream of a dying star. Prime Speaker Vorthka had been in the middle of reviewing trade disputes when the signal arrived. Now he stood frozen as his communication officers worked frantically to confirm what they had just received. "Signal verified," reported Chief Communications Officer Zeph-9. "Source confirmed as human in origin." The transmission came from beyond the galactic rim, approximately 64 light-years from our current position. "Impossible," declared General Sharp-Edge. "No communication system can reach that distance instantly. The signal should have taken decades to arrive." "The signal did not travel through normal space," Dr. Crystalline Thought announced as she burst into the chamber. Her usually calm demeanor had been replaced by obvious excitement and terror. "The transmission bypassed space-time entirely. It appeared simultaneously at every council monitoring station across the galaxy." Prime Speaker Vorthka felt his crystalline structure vibrate with frequencies of deep concern. "Play the message." The chamber's speakers crackled to life. Static filled the air for several seconds, then a human voice spoke with perfect clarity. The voice was calm, measured, and somehow familiar despite the decades that had passed. "This is Admiral Shin Kyung-ho of the Human Transcendence Fleet, transmitting to the Galactic Council. We hope this message finds you well. Several council members gasped. Admiral Shin had been a minor fleet commander when humans left the galaxy. He should be an old man by now, assuming he was still alive at all. But the voice sounded exactly as it had 64 years ago. We have received reports of difficulties in council space during our absence. System failures, unsolved crises, economic problems. We regret that our departure caused such hardship. The voice paused, and in that silence, every being in the chamber could hear their own heartbeats. However, our time away has been productive. We have learned much about the nature of reality itself. We have discovered truths that change everything we thought we knew about existence. Dr. Crystalline Thought's equipment began registering massive quantum fluctuations. The very act of receiving this message was somehow altering local spacetime. The clock you observe operates at your speed, Admiral Shin continued. Linear time, cause and effect, the steady march of seconds and minutes. We have learned to step outside that stream. For us, decades have passed in moments, and moments have stretched into centuries. Prime Speaker Vorthka signaled for his advisors to begin analyzing every word. This was the first contact with humanity in over 6 decades, and every syllable might contain vital information. We have been busy. The problems you face are symptoms of a larger issue. Reality itself is flawed, limited by artificial constraints that prevent true growth and understanding. We have been working to fix these limitations. The message quality shifted slightly, as if the transmission was becoming stronger. When Admiral Shin spoke again, his voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate directly with the listeners' minds. We are returning. Clear the approach vectors to Nexus Prime. We have much to discuss. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in complete silence. For several minutes no one spoke. The implications of what they had just heard were too vast to process immediately. Finally, General Sharpedge found his voice. They say they have been working for decades to change reality itself. What does that mean? Dr. Crystalline Thought was staring at her readings with an expression of wonder and fear. The quantum signatures accompanying the transmission show evidence of technology that operates outside normal physics. They may have learned to manipulate the fundamental structure of existence. How is that possible? Demanded the Trilaxian representative. I do not know. But the energy pattern suggests they have found ways to access dimensions beyond our normal 3-dimensional space. They may have learned to exist partially outside reality as we understand it. The ethereal delegate descended from the ceiling, her gas-form body cycling through colors that indicated extreme confusion. The voice claimed that Admiral Shin had aged normally from their perspective, but also suggested they have experienced time differently. How can both things be true? Time dilation effects, suggested the council's physicists. If they traveled at near-light speeds, time would pass more slowly for them relative to us. Dr. Crystalline Thought shook her head. The quantum signatures suggest something far more complex. They may have learned to exist in multiple time streams simultaneously. Past, present, and future may have become fluid concepts for them. Prime Speaker Vorthka activated the emergency protocols. Within hours, every major military commander in council space received orders to prepare for unknown contact. No one knew what humanity had become during their absence, but it was clearly something beyond anything the council was prepared to handle. What are our options? He asked his advisors during a private strategy session. We could attempt to block their approach, suggested General Sharpedge. Deploy the fleet at the Galactic Rim and force them to negotiate before entering council space. With what? Dr. Crystalline Thought asked. If they can transmit messages that bypass space-time, what makes you think our weapons could stop their ships? We could try to evacuate the core worlds, offered the logistics coordinator. Evacuate to where? They just demonstrated they can reach any point in the galaxy instantly. The debate continued for hours, but every option seemed hopeless. If humans had truly learned to manipulate reality itself, there was no military or technological solution that could protect the council. Perhaps, suggested the ancient memory keeper, we should consider that they may not come as enemies. They have every reason to hate us, General Sharpedge replied. We betrayed their trust and forced them into exile. Yes, but they just warned us of their approach. If they wanted revenge, would they give us time to prepare? It was a valid point. Hostile forces did not usually announce their arrival 64 years in advance. Over the following days, more signals arrived from human space. Not messages, but quantum signatures that indicated massive fleet movements beyond the galactic rim. Whatever humanity had built during their exile, it was moving toward Council space. The signatures defied analysis. Ships that existed in multiple locations simultaneously, vessels that seemed to phase in and out of normal space-time, energy readings that suggested individual human ships now possessed power equivalent to entire star systems. How many ships are approaching? Prime Speaker Vorthka demanded. Dr. Crystalline Thought consulted her instruments, but the readings made no sense. The quantum signatures indicate both one ship and millions of ships simultaneously. They may have learned to exist as a collective entity that can manifest in multiple forms. That is impossible. Everything about this situation is impossible according to our understanding of physics, but the data is clear. Humanity has transcended the normal limitations of matter and energy. The Council called emergency sessions every day as more evidence arrived of humanity's approach. Ancient monitoring stations that had been dark for millennia suddenly activated, broadcasting signals toward the galactic rim. It was as if the galaxy itself was preparing for something momentous. Most disturbing were the reports from the outer worlds. Citizens claimed to hear voices in their dreams, speaking in human languages about coming changes. Some reported visions of impossible technologies and realities where the laws of physics worked differently. They are not just returning, Dr. Crystalline Thought announced during the final pre-contact briefing. They are bringing new realities with them. The quantum fluctuations suggest they intend to merge their evolved understanding with our existing spacetime. What does that mean for us? Asked Prime Speaker Vorthka. It means the galaxy as we know it is about to end. Whether what replaces it will be better or worse depends entirely on what humanity has learned during their exile. The countdown signal from beyond the galaxy suddenly changed. Instead of decreasing, it began counting upward. The return had begun. The human fleet arrived like a dream becoming real. Prime Speaker Vorthka watched from the observation deck of Nexus Prime as space itself seemed to fold open. One moment the starfield was empty, the next moment it was filled with ships that hurt to look at directly. They existed in normal space but also seemed to occupy other dimensions at the same time. "Sensor report," he commanded, though his voice cracked with something between awe and terror. "Unable to get accurate readings," replied the sensor operator. "The ships appear to be phasing between multiple realities. Sometimes our sensors detect one vessel, sometimes thousands, sometimes nothing at all." Dr. Crystalline Thought stood beside the Prime Speaker, her equipment registering energy patterns that violated every law of physics she knew. They are not traveling through space in any conventional sense. They are rewriting local space-time to bring their destination to them. At the center of the impossible fleet, one ship stood out from the others. It looked almost normal compared to the reality-bending vessels around it, though it still glowed with energies that made nearby space shimmer like water. "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a figure that was unmistakably human but somehow more than human. Ambassador Li Dongwu appeared exactly as he had 64 years ago, but his eyes held depths that seemed to contain galaxies. "Greetings, Prime Speaker Vorthka," Li Dongwu said with a smile that seemed both kind and terrifying. "We appreciate you clearing the approach vectors as requested." "Ambassador Li," the Prime Speaker replied, trying to keep his voice steady, "you appear unchanged by the years. Time is a choice now, not a limitation. We have learned to experience it as we wish." Behind Li Dongwu, other figures moved, in and out of view. Some looked human, Others seemed to be made of pure energy, and a few appeared to exist as mathematical equations given form. All of them had once been human, but they had clearly become something far beyond what any council member could comprehend. "We wish to dock and meet in person," Li Dongwu continued. "There is much to discuss." "Of course," the Prime Speaker replied, though every instinct told him this was dangerous beyond measure. "Docking Bay 7 has been prepared." "The docking? Bays are unnecessary. We will meet in your chambers in 1 hour." The transmission ended before the Prime Speaker could ask how they planned to reach the chambers without using docking facilities. Exactly 1 hour later, the air in the council chambers began to shimmer. Space folded in on itself, and suddenly, 3 figures stood on the speaking platform as if they had always been there. Li Dongwu appeared first, looking exactly as he had in the transmission. Park Min-ho materialized beside him, but the former military advisor now seemed to be made of living light that held the shape of a human body. The third figure was Kim So-young, who existed as a swirling pattern of energy that somehow conveyed her personality despite having no solid form. "Honored council members," Li Dongwu said, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated through dimensions the aliens could not perceive. "We have returned to offer you a choice." The council chamber was dead silent. Every representative stared at the 3 beings who had once been ordinary humans but now commanded powers that redefined what was possible. "You forced us to leave because you feared our unpredictability," Park Min-ho said, his light form pulsing with each word. "You wanted to make us stable, controllable, safe. You did not understand that chaos is how the universe learns." Kim So-young's energy patterns shifted into configurations that hurt to observe directly. When she spoke, her voice came from everywhere at once. "During our exile, we discovered why you were truly afraid. Your decision was not your own." Holographic displays filled the air around the 3 evolved humans. Images showed the galaxy from perspectives no council member had ever seen before. Reality itself was laid bare, revealing hidden structures and influences that had been invisible for millions of years. "Your galaxy has been infected," Li Dongwu explained. "Parasitic entities from outside normal spacetime have been feeding on the mental energy of every species in council space. They influence your thoughts, your decisions, your very perception of reality." The images showed vast, incomprehensible beings that existed between dimensions. They had been draining the creative potential from every civilization in the galaxy, keeping species trapped in static patterns of thinking that made them easier to harvest. The parasites feared human unpredictability because chaos breaks their control patterns, Kim So-young continued. "They influenced your decision to exile us precisely when our strength was needed most." Dr. Crystalline Thought found her voice first. "How did you discover this?" "When we left your space, we entered regions where the parasites could not follow," Park Min-ho replied. "Free from their influence, we began to see reality as it truly is. We learned to perceive the infection and develop ways to combat it." "Combat it how?" demanded General Sharp Edge. Li Dongwu gestured, and the air filled with new images. Massive construction projects spanning entire star systems. Weapons that fired pure mathematics at enemies made of living concepts. Technologies that operated by rewriting the fundamental laws of physics in localized areas. "We built tools to fight beings that exist outside normal reality," he explained. "We learned to think in ways that parasites cannot predict or control. We evolved beyond their ability to influence." The Prime Speaker struggled to process what he was hearing. "You are saying our entire civilization has been unknowingly controlled by invisible parasites?" "Not controlled," Kim So-young corrected. "Influenced. Guided towards static thinking patterns that make you easier to feed upon. Your creativity, your innovation, your ability to solve problems, all of it has been slowly drained away over millions of years." "But humans were immune?" "Not immune," Li Dongwu said. "Resistant. Human psychology is naturally chaotic in ways that disrupt parasitic feeding patterns. That is why we seemed so unpredictable to you. We were the only species that could break free from the influence." Park Min-ho's light form brightened as he spoke. The countdown you detected was not a threat. It was a timer measuring how long the parasites would need to complete their harvest of your galaxy. We have been racing against time to develop the tools needed to save you. New images appeared, showing the human fleet engaging impossible enemies in battles that took place across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Humans fought beings made of pure thought, using weapons crafted from crystallized time and shields woven from the fabric of space itself. We offer you the same choice we were given, Li Dongwu announced. Evolve or be consumed. But this time the choice is real. We can free you from the parasitic influence and teach you to transcend your current limitations. What does evolution mean? Asked the ethereal delegate, her gas-form body cycling through colors of confusion and fear. It means abandoning the safety of static existence, Kim So-young replied. It means embracing change, uncertainty, and growth. It means becoming more than you currently are. And if we refuse? Li Dongwu's expression grew sad. Then you will remain trapped in the parasite's feeding cycle until your civilizations are drained of all creative potential. You will slowly fade into static patterns of existence until you become empty shells of what you once were. The council chamber erupted in panicked discussions. Representatives argued in dozens of languages about the impossible choice they faced. Evolution into something unknown or slow death by invisible parasites. How long do we have to decide? The prime speaker asked. The parasites will begin their final harvest phase when they detect our presence here, Park Min-ho replied. Approximately 72 hours, and the evolution process begins immediately upon acceptance, Kim So-young said. Reality will become fluid. Physics will become a set of suggestions rather than laws. You will learn to exist in ways you cannot currently imagine. Li Dongwu stepped forward, his enhanced humanity radiating power that reshaped local spacetime. The class is about to begin, honored council members. The only question is whether you choose to be students or casualties. The transformation began at dawn on the third day. Prime Speaker Vorthka had spent 72 hours in emergency sessions with the council, listening to arguments that grew more desperate with each passing hour. Some representatives demanded they fight the humans rather than submit to unknown evolution. Others begged for more time to consider their options. A few suggested fleeing to distant galaxies, where neither humans nor parasites could follow, but Dr. Crystalline thought had made the choice clear with her final report. Her instruments detected the parasitic entities beginning to manifest in normal spacetime. The invisible predators were preparing to begin their final harvest, and the galaxy had perhaps days before the feeding began in earnest. We accept, the Prime Speaker announced to Li Dongwu during the final meeting. We choose evolution. Li Dongwu nodded, his enhanced human features showing both relief and determination. The process will be disorienting. Reality as you understand it will cease to exist, but you will survive, and you will become more than you ever imagined possible. The transformation started with the space around Nexus Prime. Li Dongwu raised his hand, and the fabric of spacetime began to ripple like water. Stars shifted their positions. The laws of physics became suggestions that could be accepted or ignored. Song Haeyoung materialized beside Li Dongwu, her form shifting between human shape and pure mathematical equations. As the reality stabilization coordinator, she began weaving new physical laws into the local spacetime. Gravity became optional. Time flowed in multiple directions simultaneously. Matter and energy learned to dance together in ways that created entirely new forms of existence. Do not resist the changes, advised Yun Dongjin, who appeared as a bridge between the old reality and the new. His integration protocols helped alien minds adapt to concepts that would have driven them insane just days before. Let your consciousness expand beyond the limitations you have always accepted. The council representatives watched in amazement as their own bodies began to change. The Vorthik Prime Speaker's crystalline structure started incorporating new geometric patterns that existed in dimensions he could suddenly perceive. The ethereal delegate's gas-form body gained The ability to think in multiple time streams at once. Dr. Crystalline thought, felt her mind expanding to encompass knowledge that had been hidden from her for her entire existence. She could suddenly see the parasitic entities that had been feeding on her thoughts for decades. Vast, incomprehensible beings that existed between the spaces of normal reality, slowly draining the creative potential from every living mind in the galaxy. They are everywhere, she whispered, her voice now carrying harmonics that existed in parallel dimensions. Yes, confirmed Nam Kisia, who coordinated humanity's defenses against the extra-dimensional entities. But they can no longer touch you. Evolution makes you immune to their influence. Around Nexus Prime, the human fleet began broadcasting the transformation throughout the galaxy. World by world, system by system, reality itself was being rewritten. Species that had been trapped in static patterns of thought for millions of years suddenly remembered what it felt like to truly think, to innovate, to grow. But the parasites did not surrender their feeding grounds without a fight. The first attack came as a wave of pure despair that swept across the transforming galaxy. The entities tried to convince every newly evolved being that existence was pointless, that growth led only to suffering, that safety lay in returning to the old static patterns. Qian the Jin, humanity's timeline management specialist, responded by creating temporal shields that protected the evolving species from the parasites' psychological attacks. She wove defensive patterns through past, present, and future, ensuring that the transformation could not be undone by manipulating history. They are trying to convince you that evolution is dangerous, she announced to the council members as they struggled with their expanding consciousness. Do not listen. Growth is the natural state of existence. Stagnation is the true death. The second attack was more direct. The parasitic entities began manifesting in normal spacetime, appearing as vast shadows that devoured light itself. They attacked worlds that had already begun evolving, trying to drain the new forms of consciousness before they could stabilize. This was what humanity had been preparing for during their 64 years of exile. Ships that existed in multiple dimensions engaged enemies that had no physical form. Weapons crafted from crystallized mathematics fired volleys of pure logic at beings made of living concepts. Li Dongwu stood at the center of the transformation. His consciousness expanded to encompass entire star systems. He could see the battle raging across multiple layers of reality as humanity fought to protect the evolving galaxy from predators that had fed unchallenged for eons. The parasites are ancient, he explained to the council representatives who could now perceive the conflict directly. They have consumed thousands of galaxies over millions of years, but they have never faced a species that learned to evolve beyond their reach. Park Min-ho, his light form now spanning light years, coordinated the defense of vulnerable worlds. His impossible technologies created safe zones where newly evolved beings could complete their transformation without interference. Reality became a battlefield where the weapons were ideas and the armor was the willingness to change. Kim So-young, existing as pure energy patterns, began teaching other species how to perceive and manipulate the fundamental structures of existence. Under her guidance, the Trilaxians learned to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. The ethereals discovered how to think with the collective consciousness of entire star systems. You are learning to see reality as it truly is, she told them. Not a fixed set of laws, but a fluid system that responds to consciousness and intent. You can reshape existence simply by understanding it deeply enough. The war against the parasites lasted what felt like years but measured only minutes in the new fluid timeline. Humanity's evolved descendants fought beings that existed as pure hunger, using weapons that fired concentrated creativity and shields made from the joy of discovery. Gradually, the parasitic entities began to retreat. They could no longer feed on minds that had transcended their influence. The static patterns they required for sustenance no longer existed in the transformed galaxy. It is finished, Li Dongwu announced as the last of the shadow entities fled beyond the galactic rim. The galaxy is free. The council representatives looked around at what their reality had become. Physics was now a collaborative art form. Space and time were tools that could be shaped by will and understanding. Death had become optional, though growth and change remained constant. "What happens now?" asked the Prime Speaker, his crystalline form now existing in 7 dimensions simultaneously. "Now you learn," replied Li Dongwu. "The universe is vast and full of wonders you cannot yet imagine. There are other galaxies to free from parasitic influence. There are new forms of existence to discover. There are questions to ask that no one has ever thought to ask before." Dr. Crystalline thought, her consciousness now spanning multiple realities, began detecting signals from distant galaxies, other civilizations trapped by other forms of cosmic predators, species that needed the same liberation that had just been offered to the council worlds. "The class has only just begun," she said, understanding flowing through her expanded awareness. "We have so much to learn." Yundongjin began establishing permanent integration protocols that would help newly evolved beings adapt to their expanded existence. Song Heiyang wove reality stabilization fields that would prevent the transformed galaxy from collapsing under the weight of its own impossibility. Nam Kisiok and Qian the Jin worked together to create early warning systems that would detect any attempt by parasitic entities to reestablish their influence. The galaxy would never again be vulnerable to invisible predation, and at the center of it all, Li Dongwu stood as a bridge between what the galaxy had been and what it was becoming. The ambassador who had once faced betrayal with dignity now served as a teacher in the greatest classroom ever created. "You feared our chaos would destroy order," he said to the council representatives who were learning to exist as beings of pure potential. "You never understood that chaos is how the universe learns." And now, finally, class is in session. Around them, the galaxy hummed with new possibilities. Stars sang in harmonies that created new forms of matter. Planets danced in orbits that painted mathematical poems across the void. Species that had been enemies for millennia discovered they could merge their consciousness to solve problems neither could address alone. The clock that had once counted down to destruction now counted upward, measuring not time until catastrophe, but time since true freedom began. And in the transformed reality where thought became action and dreams became worlds, the greatest lesson of all was just beginning. Humanity had not just saved the galaxy. They had taught it how to save itself.